Welcome to Family Focus. I'm Joyce Johnson, President and CEO of Johnson & Olson Communications and Casting, a full-service public relations agency. Today we're going to help people. We're going to have a lot of people, a lot of parents, a lot of families out there. My guest today, Shannon Martin Jarvis. Thank you for being on our show, as well as Jody Wages, who is with our show. Now, Shannon is the mother of Drew, who happens to have Down syndrome.
Right.
All right. So tell us your family dynamics right now.
Well, right now we've lived in the same house for about 20 years. It's me, Drew, who's now 20, Alex, his brother, who's 16, and our dog, Beretta, our German Shepherd, who is definitely part of the family. So I've been divorced. We got divorced when Drew was about 5. So it's kind of just our little family. Their dad's involved, but it's certainly been a challenge with having a family dynamic like that. In fact, I was looking at the statistics of people who get divorced that have kids with disabilities, and typically the divorce rate's about 40 to 50%, and with parents with disabilities, it's about 80 to 90.
Is it because of stress?
It's a lot of factors. It's because of different parenting techniques. A lot of times one of them has to stay home because, not daycares take kids with disabilities that especially have behavior problems. So it's really hard to get somebody. So usually one of the parent usually ends up taking on a lot more than the other. And I think that weighs on a relationship. But yeah, there's a lot of different factors in that.
And with you, today your family stepped in to help. Yeah. How often does that happen? Do you feel like you need to just jump in there because it's hard to get people that will stay with Drew?
I think so. I think Drew is more accepting of people that he knows. And he's very affectionate. I have 2 daughters, a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old. And it's really beautiful the way that Drew looks at him and hugs him, and just the way he interacts with them. Mm-hmm. So.
And it hasn't always been that way because he did have a lot of behaviors when he was younger that were very aggressive.
What was he doing?
Okay, so this is where he's also diagnosed with autism. So a lot of, it's becoming more prominent now because they're recognizing that these behaviors that a lot of the kids are having are not typical with Down syndrome behaviors. You know how people say they're always so happy? Well, Drew had a lot of behaviors, a lot of aggressive behaviors, hitting, throwing things, especially at schools. I had to pick him up from school a lot. So that was always getting a challenge. It was either me or his dad or my mom when she was alive. So that support system was really hard when he was having those behaviors, but now he's kind of outgrown those behaviors. He's hit puberty, he's 20, he just relates with her girls so well. My son Alex is just the best little big brother. So, we don't have a lot of family, but I'm certainly appreciative when I call her to help me.
Yes. Now, did you have genetic testing done?
I did not. I did not have, I think I was 32 when he was born, but I did not have that triple screen done. So when he was born, we were very much surprised. I had a high-risk pregnancy, so I had hyperclampsia and a lot of other issues, so he was a little bit early. But I had a C-section, and when he was born, you have your C-section, you get wheeled back in, and all these ladies after me started getting their babies, and I'm like, well, where's my baby? So I saw, when they were cleaning me up, I saw my husband and a doctor walked up. Well, being a nurse, I know that doctors don't come see you postpartum, so that's when they said, we think he has Down syndrome. It was Easter weekend, so they were going to run a test to Columbus to see for sure. So for a couple of days, we didn't really know because he didn't really have the prominent facial features. So, but we did find out that he did have Down syndrome. So it was quite a shock. It was, my eyes were swollen shut. You know, it was quite a shock. And if I can read this poem, it explains a lot. If I can't get through it, you can read through it.
Yeah, pick up the paper, right?
It's called Welcome to Harlem. It's by this lady named Emily Curl Kingsley. And she wrote it in 1987 in response to her and how her feelings when she had a child with Downs. It says, I am often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try to help people who have not shared that unique experience, to understand it, to imagine how it feels. It's like this. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks, you make wonderful plans, the Colosseum, the Michelangelo David, the gondolas of Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all very exciting. And after months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags, you go off several hours, the plane lands, and the stewardess comes in and she says, welcome to Holland. Holland, you say? What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life I've dreamed of going to Italy. But there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and there you must stay. The important thing is that they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy, full of pestilence, famine, and disease. It's just a different place. So you must go out, you got to buy new guidebooks, you must learn a new language, you'll meet a whole new group of people that you've never met. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy than Italy. But after you've been there for a while, you catch your breath, you look around, and you begin to notice that Holland has windmills. Holland has tulips. Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy. They're all bragging about what a wonderful time they had, and for the rest of their life, you'll say, yes, that's where I was supposed to go. And you can read.
You're doing. Well, let me stop you because I want to know how is it different, and you can comment on this also. How is it different than having your typical child that doesn't have a disability? What are some things that you have to think about that most parents just don't? And clearly there are some big differences here.
Yeah, and like it says at the end, if you could spend your life mourning the fact that you didn't go to Italy, you may never be free to enjoy the very special, lovely things about Holland.
Yes.
Just like as a child.
I get
and, you know, it's totally different being a parent from the beginning. Drew started physical therapy when he was 5 weeks old, you know, and so just having to take him to the facilities, getting all the testing as far as his heart, and he had swallowing difficulties. So, I mean, as each stage goes on, the parenting is definitely a challenge, especially through schools.
Can you add to that?
Well, one thing that Shannon has been very, I don't know what to say,
Vigilant about?
thank you.
Yes.
Which is advocating for Drew, because he's been in a couple different school situations which did not fit Drew. You know, they're trying to put him in a typical classroom, and he doesn't read, he doesn't know his letters, he doesn't know numbers, and so he was more of a disruption to the classroom. But she found some places where, some schools where he could go and learn life skills, and they would teach more at Drew's level, not trying to adapt Drew to the typical child's level. So,
was there a particular time that was more difficult in raising Drew, that was really stressing you out?
Yeah, I think it was the time he had the really bad behaviors. And, you know, he feeds off people's emotions. He feeds off your emotions, what you're feeling. So, of course, I was very stressed. He was very stressed. There was a really bad moment that comes to memory is when he was at my parents' house, who lived next to the reservoir. And I went to Walmart, and he happened to take off. Luckily, I had my old German Shepherd with him, and they found him finally. I came back, and the whole neighborhood was searching. They found him 2 miles away. My German Shepherd was totally covered with mud and stuff, and Drew was dry. my dog protected and saved his life. I had to go through a little trauma therapy about that because that was the most scariest moment that I've had. But
It's devastating.
it is, and some things like that do take a little bit more to get over. But there's been a lot of funny, good moments too.
Now, this has to have a big impact on your social life, getting out there. You can't just run to the grocery store.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
it's just not going to happen. So
Right.
how has this impacted your social life and even your professional life?
Right. I mean, speaking of professional life, yeah, I was a nurse, and I tried working in early intervention and with Head Start and working with kids, but I had to be there for him. And if you don't have a great support system, it definitely affects your professional life. If you get called to school, you have to pick him up. If he's having a bad stomach issue that day, you have to call off. So that affected me, but then I learned how to adjust with it, be a stay-home mom, focus on him, do what I can. And socially, from the beginning, something that points out to me a lot is when Alex was in sports, he's a little 4 years younger, we'd be going to his practices and Drew would love it, but I couldn't sit there with the moms and chat and what's going on in school and all that. Drew was running off here, running off there, wanting to swing, or maybe he had a meltdown and I had to take him home. So I kind of really felt left out of that social group, and it bothered me for a really long time. But it doesn't bother me so much anymore.
Well, and you mentioned, of course, he has a brother, Alex, and that has to have an impact on the sibling. So let's talk about some of the things, the impact that it has when you have other children, and what can be done about it. What can you do to let them feel like they aren't being neglected either?
Right. I mean, the first time I brought Alex home from the hospital, poor little guy, he set him down, and I said, "Drew, here's your brother," and he went, scratched him, blood.
Oh.
So Alex has always learned how to be a little tough guy. I mean, he's a huge little guy now, but he's had to take a lot from his brother when, especially, those days with behaviors. But he's learned to adjust. I remember the first time he realized his brother was different, he asked me, "How come I can do these things and Drew can't?" Because he knew he was younger. And so I explained to him. And then he kind of took on that protective brother role. He was getting a little older. Mm-hmm. The only time he got in trouble in school was when a kid said something about his brother and he punched him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that would be a very common experience, too.
Yeah, and now that he's driving, it's so nice. He takes Drew with him places, and he's really become his buddy.
His buddy.
Yeah.
You're watching Family Focus, and I'm Joyce Johnson, your host. We are talking today about raising a child with Down syndrome and some of the things that parents really need to keep in mind, things to adjust, make their life easy. If you want to email me, it's sunaroundtown@aol.com, and even a suggestion for the shows that we tape here. Let's talk a little bit about adult life now for your son, and what is that? How old is he now, and how have things changed for him? What is it like now that is he in school, first of all?
Right.
Okay.
Legally, he can go to school until he's 22. Mm-hmm. And I did find an appropriate school in which they, go in the community and learn life skills, basically. So that we're not focusing so much now as he's older on educational goals. He's still at about a 3-year-old level. I still have to, dress him, bathe him, do all that kind of stuff. So my goal is to get more help in that and get him a respite provider. It's really hard to find a good provider to come in your house and help you because, moms, they just do it themselves. And I'm guilty of that. So, he might not do a lot of stuff on his own because mom always did it for him.
Jumped in and did it.
Yeah. But his school is learning. And after that, he'll go to a day work program. Mm-hmm. But switching to adulthood, I had to apply to get guardianship of him. I had to go through court. It was quite a process. I had to go through training and all this stuff, and it felt like I was adopting my own child. But I understand why they do that. They need to make sure that the guardian is being the proper advocate, and put in the monies for the child.
Does he talk about the future? Does he?
No, he doesn't. He loves to go to his papa's house and his pap and grandma's and stuff. And I don't know in the future. I'm thinking he'll probably be with me for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
He's not going to be able to live on his own. I'm not so sure about group homes.
Yes, I was just going to ask you about that.
I know there's some good ones out there. I just have some issues with some things that have happened to him in the past, because he's not the type that can voice something that went wrong or something. It's just a mom's fear. I know there's a lot of good group homes out there, but I'm not there yet. So he spends the weekends every other weekend with his dad. So, I do get some time alone.
Have you connected with other moms with Down? I mean, is there a group, is there an organization where you can really talk to someone who gets it?
Right, yeah, there are. And when he was first born, I did go to support groups. And then there's a lot of autism support groups that are out there, even at local libraries. You can get a hold of your county, DODD, Department of Developmental Disabilities, and they can direct you to different support groups. But it is so important to have some contacts with family, that they know what you're going through. They know they know it's hard. It's an everyday thing. It's like I've raised a 3-year-old for 18 years, basically.
Yes.
So
Right.
Having that support is really good. He used to be on a baseball team called Talmadge Challenger. It's a great program. They have all kids with different kinds of abilities that have it's just blossomed. He's not so much into baseball anymore, but there's so many programs out there. And if you get a hold of your local DODD or the local ARC, you can find out a lot about those programs.
Now, and you've had to jump in on more than one occasion, and then your mom became ill, and how did this impact your family when maybe your sibling, you realize she's already doing a lot of caregiving? So did you feel like the impact of parental care or any of that fell on you, that you felt overwhelmed by?
We have always been pretty active in Drew's life. Once we lived in the same city. My husband is very good with Drew, as well as my girls, as I've said. But I think I am very, I know exactly what she goes through day in and day out. We take vacations together. We spend a lot of time together, and I know a lot of Drew's triggers and a lot of his behaviors that he's had in the past.
He smacked her a few times.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like pretty hard, I would imagine.
Yeah. But, that's been a while since any of those behaviors
What would
have
trigger
happened.
him that would cause that?
Well, there's a lot of overstimulation that seems to, like if the other kids are being kind of wild and loud,
Yeah.
that triggers him, or other loud.
His fear of heights. Definitely fear of heights. Right?
Yeah, right. But usually it's the other things going on in the room that create overstimulation, which he has a hard time trying to deal with it and
Regulate it,
and regulate it.
Yeah, and the fear of heights, that's been our biggest challenge. Going back to that question, it is even like Rubber Duck Stadium, because it sets and you're looking down. His perception is off. So places with high ceilings, all that, we cannot go very many places. So we go to a few grocery stores that he's used to now, and we try to challenge him. We go in a different door in school because he won't go up the stairs. But we try to do things outdoors with him. This weekend we're going to a concert because it's outside at Firestone Country Club. So he gets to see his favorite band, his first concert.
Wow. All right. So best advice you can give a parent, who has a child with a disability. It doesn't even necessarily have to be just Downs,
Right.
but some parent that is dealing with a child with a disability. How about some advice?
Well, for a parent who has a child with disability themselves, I would just say, don't be afraid to get help. At first, I was the one that was helping others, so it was really hard for me to accept the help and learn. Just accept the help and learn what you can. Give yourself some grace. You can grieve that child that you were expecting that isn't. When they said grieve your child, I'm like, what do you mean my child's alive? No, you got to take time and this is not what you expected, like that poem. Mm-hmm. And advice to other parents, I would say, is teach your children to be kind to others. Most are, but we get a lot of stares still, and I see the mom saying, don't stare, and I want to say, like, just ask me a question, mm-hmm. Or say to your kid, say hi to them, but teach your kid to not just tolerate, but maybe engage kids with different abilities.
And I would imagine people that don't understand ask inappropriate questions. Like
right.
Some that would just really throw you off. Is there any that just really took you by surprise? Like, why would you even ask me that? Or, what are some of the questions that you're asked the most, would you say?
Well, kids with Downs are more prominent to have alopecia areata, which means spotty baldness. So he often from a young child, had spotty baldness, and a lot of kids would come up and make fun, and I had a few parents come up to me and say, what did you do to that child's hair? And I'm
like you cut it.
Yeah, I'm like,
yeah.
Well, can you tell it's balding a little bit? So we eventually started shaving his head because of that. Now his hair has grown out a little bit, but I don't know. I just kind of sometimes you just got to chuckle about that stuff.
I have a friend whose daughter also had Friedrichsen's disease, and was constantly asked, well, how long is she going to live?
Right.
How long is she going to be around? Well, I guess it's something you could Google, but she was always taken a little back by that because they don't know.
Right.
There's no
black and white
stock answer for that. But people would ask her these things, or what's wrong?
Right.
They would try to guess her disability.
Right. And I still have to take him into the bathrooms with me. It's funny. And I did, like, last month get a comment from a mom, like, why isn't he going to the boys?
Right.
And I'm like, well, with the bathroom situations these days, what does it matter?
I know. Family bathroom, family. That's what we're doing. I mean, those are all things that, oh my gosh, so many parents with disabilities have to be. All right, so what would you have done differently? Is there anything that you can think of that you would have done differently in parenting? Looking back.
First thing is not do so much for him. Make him do more himself. But then when you're a single mom and you have a second child, you kind of, it needs to be done. I got to get to this child. And, so I definitely wish I would have done that. I wish I would have, even though I advocated for him to get out of the school situation, I wish I would have pushed a little harder, maybe got a lawyer, because I think he missed a lot of that early education that he was not getting because I was being called to take him home 2-3 days a week. Yeah. Those are the two things I think I would.
Oh. All right. Anything else that you would like to add? And you can add also, Jody, things that you would like to add that we haven't touched on that would be important for us to know here.
Well, one thing I would love to say about Drew is how affectionate he is and how funny he is.
Hilarious.
Sometimes he just comes up with the appropriate comment at the appropriate time, and it just kind of you're taken aback because you think, where'd that come from? But I call him the Rain Man of music because he is obsessed with music. There's not a lot of things that he likes to do typically,
or can memorize.
But he is. You'll turn on the radio and he'll start singing to a song, and you're like, when did you hear that? So
what kind of music does he like? Do you know?
I'd say he likes everything. For a while
Mostly
there, he was
country.
on to wasn't it The Sound of Music or something like that?
He likes everything. He likes rock, country, James Taylor, Michael Jackson, anything. But I don't know if we have time, but if I can tell you a funny story,
Yeah, go ahead.
especially with the colleague Firestone golf thing in Akron this week. He's always been a funny kid, but when I was still with his dad, we took him to a practice round for the World Series of Golf at Firestone, and he was on my husband's shoulders, and Ernie Els was in his backswing, and Drew said, "Don't miss." Oh, we were like, oh my God. He actually stopped in his backswing, and he looked over, and then he golfed, and then you know what he did? He came over, took Drew's hat off, signed it, and walked away. And then I later learned that Ernie Els has a child with autism.
Yes.
Isn't that a good story?
That is an incredible story.
So yeah, Ernie Els is our favorite.
Oh my gosh, that is an incredible story. Well, I'm afraid we're running out of time. I really appreciated both of you being here today, Shannon Martin Jarvis and Jody Wages. You have enlightened us all, really, about a very serious topic that a lot of people just don't even think about it. They just don't even think about it. I'm Joyce Johnson, and thank you for joining us on Family Focus. We will be back with more, and hopefully you will be back on our show again.
Sure.
If you want to email me, it's Joyce at I'm sorry, I gave it the wrong. It is Joy. I almost gave the radio station.
Yeah.
It's sunaroundtown at AOL.com. And we invite you to give us some feedback on this program. And certainly I'd like to have you back. And maybe he'll even make an appearance. Who knows? You never know.
He would like that.
You never know.
And I can even give you my email if people would like to reach out to me.
You bet. Thank you for joining us on Family Focus.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.